Okay, I'm going to get started here. Thanks for joining. This is Carole from the STS. Today's May 3rd, and this is the Adult Cardiac Surgery Database Monthly Webinar. On the call with me today, we have from STS, we have Emily Conrad, Leanne Jones, Sydney Clinton, and Melinda Offer, and myself. And we're just going to go through some STS dates, updates. We're going to talk about preparing for harvest close, and then we'll do a quick review of the Harvest One report that came out, and I can answer questions. A quick update, and this goes to Nancy's question about the posting. I've been getting a lot of emails about when the webinar is going to be posted, and I wasn't aware of this last week, or I'm sorry, on the 20th. We had a webinar on April 19th, and then on the 20th, I got questions about when it was going to be posted. I wasn't aware that STS website was undergoing an update. So that update's going to take place hopefully this week and next week, and then we'll be able to post the webinars and PDF slides to the website as soon as the update takes place. They're not doing any changes or we're not allowed to post anything new right now since we're undergoing an update. So the recordings are on the STS YouTube channel for ACSD, the database YouTube channel. The PDF slides will be available in the coming weeks. So if you are looking for the STS National Database YouTube channel, the STS YouTube channel is right, STS Registries, STS National Database. This is all changing in the next couple of weeks, and we'll go through it on an upcoming webinar. But if you're looking for it right now, scroll down to view webinars, and then under past ACSD webinars, all the way down here at the bottom is this ACSD webinar YouTube playlist. A link for this, and this will take you to the webinar page for the adult cardiac. The the one from April 19th and the one from last week, April 27th, are posted here for the event times. The slides are available, but it's really difficult to manually send them out. So if you could just wait another week or so until we can send out the PDF slides or post them on the website, that would be great, instead of emailing them back and forth with links that can get screwed up if they ever get deleted. So just sit tight for the PDF slides, but the webinars are posted here. And again, we are undergoing an update to the website. We'll go through that in probably the next webinar we have, which I don't think it's next week. I think it's the following week. Go through an overview of that before we start the QI session. And then I'll show you where the PDF slides will be posted. In addition to that, we do have a delay in posting the May training manual because we're not allowed to make any updates at this time. The training manual will also be coming within the next week or two for the May updates. So just sit tight. We're working on it and hope to have those all done, all updated out pretty quickly. Did I cover good, Melinda, or did you have anything to add to that?
No, that was great, Carole. Thank you.
Okay. You're welcome. And then Harvest One Q4 data was released on April 15th. We're going to review that report today. Harvest One Q4 data. Harvest 2 Q1 data is closing on May 19th. We're going to talk about that. So important dates for adult cardiac. We have May 3rd, that's today. And I was going to send out site notification for sites at risk for exclusion from Harvest 2, but two things happened. The first was I went back and read my email. I couldn't remember if we were sending them out for every harvest, but there was a decision made that we're only going to send them out for Harvest 1 and 3, since those are star ratings. Site notification for exclusion from the star ratings will be sent out for Harvest 1 and 3. We will not be sending it out for Harvest 2 and 4. And that's just to notify sites a few weeks in advance of harvest close if they're at risk for exclusion due to the greater than 2% greater than 2% missing or unknown on the mortality fields, or for isolated cabbage procedures. In addition to that, if they have more than 5% missing for the NQF fields. With that being said, the report for that was run, and I was getting ready to work on these emails. I'm like, well, maybe I'll just be nice and start sending out emails to let sites know, hey, you got to clean up your data. When I got that, 80% of the sites that have submitted for harvest to data, 80% were at risk for exclusion when I looked at the data, when we looked at the data on April 30th. So I wasn't going to email, and at that time we only had 530 sites submit. This was last Friday. We only had 530 sites submit data by 3 weeks prior to harvest close. And of those 530 sites, 444 were at risk of not receiving not being included in analysis due to missingness for the mortality fields or the NQF for isolated cabbage. So I'm not going to reach out to thousands of data managers saying, hey, you're at risk, your site's at risk. 80% of sites is a large number. It was 3 weeks before a harvest close, so there's likely reasons for that. More than likely, it was because the last date in this analysis is March 31st. The report that I had was run on April 30th. It doesn't give you enough time to get your 30-day status in, so it likely was going to be a useless communication coming from me and a lot of work. Thousands of emails would have had to go out, and from those thousands, I get hundreds back requesting more information. So instead of sending out that notification, I thought today we'll just go over the preparing for harvest close. I'll show you where to look for all of these, all of the requirements, and I'll show you what the requirements are. And then we can just quickly go over harvest one results and hopefully get through there. And we are going to then the harvest close. We have a webinar on May 17th, and then the harvest closes on May 19th. And May 25th, we have a webinar, the prolonged vent. That's just another screenshot. We're at harvest 2 right now. And then also AQO is going to be virtual this year. It will be from September 26th through the 29th. Adult cardiac is going to be on September 28th. Will be dedicated to adult cardiac, so it'll be a full day worth of information. And then the pricing, pricing is registration fee, 1 day member. This is if you're an STS associate member, or if you're not an associate member. It doesn't mean if you belong to the database or not. It's a separate membership that you can apply for through the STS website for an associate membership. Pricing is 1 day is $200 for member, $250 for non-member, and then for multi-day member, it's $300 for member, $400 for non-member, and $500 for industry vendors. We will be opening the call for abstracts soon, likely in mid to late May, and the deadline will be usually 30 days following that, which will be mid to late June. So if you do have a quality improvement project that you have worked on at your site using STS data, or if there's something you'd like us to review for submission to this for the abstraction for presentation, please let us know. There's official forms, and we'll be giving more information on that in one of the webinars in May. Okay, I'm going to go to questions now before we start the preparing for harvest close. Review the end. So Chris, I'm going to leave your email up there, and we'll get to that. Mary says, hello, if we have questions about the data quality report, do we send an email to the STS database? If not, then to whom? If your question is, let me pull up if your question is related to any of those reports, you're going to want to send an email to stsdb_helpdesk@sts.org. And then they'll route it. If Banu and Jane are not able to answer that question, that's who's managing the help desk right now. If they're not able to answer the question, they'll forward it on to the appropriate person, but it should start here at the STS database help desk. There was an email webinar reminder sent out on 4/24, and under the join webinar, it asked about the first quality improvement series was missed. Right next to that is a link to download the PDF slideshow. These were the slides for April 19th. Yeah, and we didn't include, thank you, Molly, for saying that. There was a link on that email that was sent out on April 24th that did include a link for the slides on April 19th. each webinar that we're having while we're working on updating the website, each webinar that we're having, the slides are getting saved to separate links, and it makes it really difficult to keep on adding those onto the email reminders. So I think it'd probably be best if we can just wait for those slides to all get updated on the website, where they will permanently live for the time being. So fewer sites have submitted because the 2023 deadlines have been moved a week earlier for each quarter compared with the 2022 schedule. Well, thanks for the feedback. I think, we keep usually between the last day that's included in analysis, which would be March 31st. We usually keep a 6 to 8 week window for when the harvest close is going to occur. And we've done that for the last numerous years. And then we look at holidays that are occurring and other things that are occurring during that time. And then also the close dates of our other databases to make sure we don't overlap with anything. So the deadlines always fall within the 6 to 8 week time frame following the last day within the submission period. I just joined. What was the slide that talks about 80% of, so we were going, Robbie, we were going to reach out to sites to say that you're at risk for exclusion from analysis for harvest 2, but when we pulled the data, 80% of sites that had submitted data were at risk. So instead of sending out a bunch of emails and managing it by email, I decided we'll just be talking about it on the webinar today. I'm showing folks how to clean up their data. We will continue that practice of reaching out to sites for harvest 1 and 3, but give them, a little bit closer to harvest close, trying to find a sweet spot between the 30-day window of the last case that's an analysis and the harvest close to reach out to sites. Will AQO be a live virtual platform? So it'll be a live virtual platform. I think we'll have some recordings and we'll have some live presentations. Has there been consideration to clean up the valve implant options in the direct data entry platform? Too many options, many that haven't been used for surgeons in the decades. So the reason we have that the list is so long and we don't remove valves from it is because we also use that same list for explants. So even though they haven't been implanted for many, many years, we're still explanting some of those very old valves. So they remain on the list. It's something that we can take into consideration for future version upgrade. If we can look at frequencies and remove things that have 0 frequency, then we'll definitely do that. And okay, so let's go over, Rebecca, I see your hand up. Did you want to talk? You could go ahead and unmute if you had something to say. And
I did not raise my hands. Sorry.
That's okay. I'll unraise it.
Okay.
Thank you. Thanks. Okay. Okay, everybody. So we're going to go over to see if I can find my link to get to the IQVIA platform. And I think that's not the one I wanted. No. I'm trying to find site that has uploader access. So there we go. Okay. So we're going to review the data harvest cleanup. The first thing I want to pull up though is the resource library, because I'm going to refer to this. I did this with the site when I was working with them for Harvest 1 to talk about how do you know if your site's included or not and where to find that information. So this is the national report overview. If it's ever updated, the link that it lives on, which is this link here, will be updated. The last time this was updated was December of 2021. We have not made any changes to it since that time. It's pretty generalized, with examples that might be from from 2021, but otherwise it's relevant to our current version 4.20. So when I'm getting ready for harvest close, what I care about and what I want to know about are what am I going to be included in analysis or not, and how do I verify that? Of course, you want to make sure that you get all of your you want to get all of your cases in, analyzed and non-analyzed cases. You want to make sure that all your risk variables are abstracted correctly. You want to make sure that on all your endpoints, right? Stroke, renal, postoperative renal failure, kidney, postoperative renal failure, stroke, return to ORs, all of those things are captured correctly. That's all part of data abstraction. But now we're going to talk about the data cleanup and ensuring that you're included in analysis.
Hey, Carol, there's a request to have your screen a little larger.
I know it's really small on my side too. Is that better?
It looks great to me. I'm hoping that'll help Sarah because I'm in trouble with seeing it.
Okay. So where I'm going to go first is down here to, this is just kind of a guide. There's lots of very important information within this document. What I care about now is making sure at this point in time, what I care about is making sure that my data is included in analysis and that I do receive an analyzed report back, which means I need to go down here to the composite section. It starts on page 29 of 39. It's called the STS Composite Quality Ratings. The first part it's going to go over is the cabbage. The next part it goes over is the valve and valve plus cabbages. It gives you the patient population, the time period, and then there's data completeness requirement. This is going to be the part that you need to pay attention to. I get many questions about why did I not receive ratings back when we're talking about star ratings for the first and third harvest, or why didn't I receive analyzed results back? Oftentimes it could have nothing to do with your data cleanliness, but it could be that you didn't have enough cases. So we need to be able to figure out if you have enough cases to be included in analysis. You could see here that there's a 36-month time frame. So we're looking for this analysis. We're looking at we're looking at April 1st, 2020 through March 31st, 2023. For that 36-month time frame, we're going to need to have 50 isolated cabbages. Hold on one second. So the time frame I said was April 1st, 2020, right? Through March 31st, I think, 2023. That should be 3 12-month periods. Okay. So we're going to look at that to make sure we have 50 isolated cabbages during those 36 months. And then we get down here to the mortality missingness. This is prior to harvest 3 information. It was 12-month time frame where you needed 10 isolated cabbages. We switched that in harvest 3 to where it's 50 cabbages over 36 months. And then we also have to look at more than 5% missingness of any of the NQF measures. Internal mammary, preoperative beta blocker, discharge beta blocker, discharge anti-lipid medication, or discharge anti-platelet medication. We combine these if you have more than 5% total in any or all of these, then you will also be at risk for exclusion from analysis. The other fields that are important, we look at these based on 3 12-month periods. So we'll look at this based on April 1st, 2020 through March 30th, 2021. April 1st, 2021 through March 30th. Is it 30th or 31st? I always get March
Well,
screwed up.
March has 31 days in it.
Okay, so sorry, March 31st. So we'll look at this from April 1st, 2020 through March 31st, 2021, April 1st, 2021 through March 31st, 2022, and April 1st, 2022 through March 31st, 2023. I would write these out separate, make a spreadsheet or something like that to help you track these, and you can update that spreadsheet every harvest. I can show you an example of what I have when we get going here. I'm just showing where the information lives. So for each 12-month period, we have 3 of them in analysis. You have to have 2% or less missing and unknown for the mortality fields for each 12-month period. So we're looking at, for version 4.20, we're looking at discharge mort stat, we're looking at MT30 stat, and we're looking at MT opt-D. And maybe I should have had this open. Let me see if I can quickly find it here. And if this is helpful, then I'm happy to share this or send it out or post a picture of it so you can pull it. It's a spreadsheet. Let's see if I can quickly find it. To see if I can find it for the next one. But what I would do is I would make a spreadsheet. Each column would be a 12-month period. I would have these variables listed on the side, and then I'm going to go through my participant dashboard through all of my various tools within the IQVIA platform, filling this out to see if anything is greater than 2%. And then for the NQF measures for isolated cabbage to see if anything it has more than 5% missing. If it does, then I know that I'm at risk for exclusion and I need to clean up my data a little bit better. Let me see. I wish I knew where the heck I saved it at because I thought it was nice, but we'll keep going here. Okay, when you get down, so that's for the isolated cabbage composite. It would remove you from analysis if you fail to meet the requirements. When we get down here to the AVR cab, MVRR cab, remember that AVR is AV replacement, AVR cab is AV replacement plus cabbage, MVRR is mitral valve replacement and mitral valve repair, and MVRR is mitral valve replacement, mitral valve repair plus cabbage. The MVRRs are combined, and we'll go through this real quick. We're same idea about the 36-month time frame, where we're looking at each 12-month 12-month periods. So again, this one we're going to look at April 1st, 2020 through March 31st, 2021, and so on through the 3 periods that make up through March 31st, 2023. The data completeness requirements, you will not even get looked at if you have less than 10 isolated AVRs or AVR cabbages. MVRRs, mitral valve repair and replacement. This is a combination of both procedures. You need 36 in 36 months. Mitral valve repair or replacements plus cabbages, you need 25 for the last 36 months. If you are nowhere close to having these counts over the 36-month time frame, you're not going to be included in analysis and you won't receive a star report. The reason why that is because quantity is a good indicator of, it indicates quality better. So the more cases you have, the better we are able to assess the quality at your site. This is the minimum case count needed to assess the quality at your site. The fields again are the same: discharge mort stat, MT30 stat, and MT opt-D. for these and the values are the same has to be less than, or I'm sorry, higher than 2% for each calendar year missing this, and you will be excluded. Less than 2% or less is required for inclusion. And there are no NQF measures or NQF variables that play into the valve or valve plus cabbage composites. Okay, it would be really helpful if I can find my sheet. So hold on one second. Because I think you're going to like it. See if this is it. I'm sorry, I should have had this open before we started. Oh. One of these is going to be it. I have a feeling. Here it is. Look at that. Let me close this guy out. All right. So I tried to make this pretty clear. The analysis period, this is year 1, year 2, year 2, year 3. I would just fill it out, right? April 1st, 2020 through March 31st, 2021, and so on. Number of cases performed. Where am I going to find that? And I think, let me see if I did it here. What I would do is go to IQVIA login here, pull up one of these sites. The first place I'm going to start is the participant dashboard. To do it this way, I'm going to look at each 12-month period. So what did I say? April 1st, 2020. Of course, that didn't work. Through March 31st. For Pete's sake, through March 31st, 2021. That's going to be my first 12-month period. I'm going to look at my cabbages first and pull that up. I'll get my values. Well, that's loading. I'm just, I could quickly fill in my screen here, but I think you get the idea. I'm going to look at my, and this is for cabbage. I'm going to look at the total cases performed. Oops. Get that guy out of here. My total cases performed for this 12-month period, right? And I know my 12-month period, I can see my parameter. I see what I selected. My number of cases is 373. And this should total all of these. I can already see for my year 1, though, that I'm going to meet the requirements of 50 cases in 12-month period. Then the next thing I'm going to look at is my mortality status at 30 days. I'm going to stay within this first 12-month period. My mortality status at 30 days, I'm looking at MT30 stat. For this field, there's 2 options. There's missing and unknown that could be coded, and that could lead to your demise and not being included in analysis if you're greater than 2%. So I'm going to go find this field MT30 stat and see where I'm at. I know discharge mortality is underneath here, this discharge mortality. And here it is, the mortality status at 30 days. It's going to stay within that 12-month time frame that I previously selected. So my unknown and missingness, I have 0% for both. So I'm just going to go ahead and enter 0 in for both of those. And then I'm going to look at my status at hospital discharge, what that is for missing. It's going to live on the same page under discharge mortality status at hospital discharge. There is no unknown option here. What's used for in looking at inclusion criteria is this missing variable, and it's at 0%. Now you're going to say, I don't know if this is helpful or not. I hope it is. operative mortality missing this. This is the MTFD field. I didn't clean this phone up yet, but this is going to be your MTFD field. I'm going to find it on the same form here. And let's see. I think this one was the tricky one. It was down way down here at the bottom. MTFD we know is this operative mortality. It's we know that in the data collection form, it's called operative mortality. We know the short name is MTFD. I'm just going to look here, and I could add more directions to this spreadsheet, but I'm curious about my missingness. I'm at 0%, and it's still for that same 12-month period because I never changed it. Now for cabbages, the other things that are important, I'm not going to be switching out of my time frame yet for the first 12 months. I'm going to look at this beta blocker within 24 hours. Remember, this is pre-op medication. So I'm going to look at that. And then I'm a internal mammary use. That's going to be in the operative section. And then this discharge beta blocker, antiplatelet, anti-lipid. And you can see I have a copy and paste mistake here because I didn't finish making this form yet, but it's still draft. So don't criticize me yet on it. Okay, so beta blocker within 24 hours is pre-op. Internal mammary artery use, that's intra-op, that's operative. Discharge beta blocker, anti-lipid, antiplatelet. These are going to be post-operative medication. So let's start with our pre-operative beta blocker. Oh, actually, you know, I forgot. This was a trick I accidentally found, is that the discharge medications are already on this discharge mort tab. So I could actually fill these in first if I wanted. The discharge medications, instead of switching back and forth, discharge medications, beta blocker, antiplatelet, anti-lipid. I'm curious as to the missings on these. So let's see. And we're going to start at the top of the medication. And Melinda, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think aspirin falls into the antiplatelet one.
Yes,
And ADP inhibitors and other antiplatelets, right?
yes, that's correct.
Yeah, so I can clarify on this later, but what I'm looking at are the aspirins, the ADP inhibitors, the other antiplatelets. I'm looking at the missing variables for those. I have 0 here, 0 here, and missing 0 for that one. So I'm just going to put in 0 for my antiplatelets, knowing that I probably need to update my I need to add some more clarification on here about what's included in this field, but I'll go back and do that later. Discharge beta blocker, discharge anti-lipids. So let's go look for those guys. Discharge beta blocker, here it is, missing 0. And discharge lipid, anti-lipid is going to be this lipid lowering statin and lipid other. I don't have any missing for either of those. So I'm pretty happy with that. And then I'm going to go look for my preoperative meds and then my internal mammary use. My preoperative meds are going to live up here. And I'm looking for my pre-op beta blockers. Now I haven't changed my time frame or I haven't changed my procedures. I'm still an isolated cab and I'm looking at the first 12 months within the analysis period. And hopefully I can find my pre-op beta blocker. And hopefully I didn't start it going the wrong way. It's this one, right? Within 24 hours, it's what's part of the NQF measure. My missing is 0. And then I'm going to find my internal mammary. Internal mammary lives under coronary bypass, not operative, sorry about that. Lives under coronary bypass. I'll just take a second to load, and what I want to know is this field here, IMA used. I shouldn't have any missing. It's either yes or no, and I have 0 missing, so that's great. So for the first year, I'm just going to keep this basic, and we're not going to go much further because it's just repetitive. But for the first year in analysis for my isolated cabbage category, I don't have anything concerning. My number of cases is fine. I'm going to be well over the 50 for the 3 years in analysis, especially after I add in year 2 and 3. I don't have any missingness for the mortality fields that go into the value. If I did, let's say that I did have percent missing. Let's say for some reason I had a couple that were missing, right? Here it's alarming. It's a value greater than 3. Or actually this is 3%. That's alarming. That's going to kick me out of analysis if that were the truth. So there's that. And then, so I'm good there, right? I'm nothing missing on my NQF measures. I'll go through and I can complete this. And I guess that's pretty much it for how I would use this form to clean up my data. Enter year 2, year 3, your isolated cabbages, and then follow the instructions. I didn't finish building this out yet, but for AVR, I would do the same thing. And you can make your color coding however you want. I'm happy to share this if you're interested. Shoot me an email and I'll send it over to you. But that's how I'm going to go about. I built that form off of what's in the National Report Overview, the requirements for inclusion in the National Report Overview. And I could use that form every time I'm getting ready for a harvest to make sure I'm going to be included or not. And that kind of gives you a little bit more ownership of it over it instead of depending on STS to notify you. Because I only have access to your data at one point in time. I don't have access to any updates that you're making or any changes that you've made since the report's been run. And I can't go in and pull out your site's data just to look at it one by one. So this gives you just a little bit more freedom to do it yourself and to constantly be aware of how to update it. So that I did for the first reporting period. I want to go and change and check the second reporting period. All I have to do is change my date range. And I'm going to look at, oops. Oh, you know what? You got to do your last. So this was actually 20. You have to do your later time frame first, I guess. So. Right, that's going to be my next time frame. Apply parameters, I rated isolated cabbage selected. This is just going to go to the next 12-month period that I'm going to be looking at. And I'll do the same thing. I'll go through, check out all of my mortality variables, MTFD, MT30 stat, and discharge mort stat. And then I'm going to go through and check out for isolated cabbages. I'll be checking out my NQF measures, the discharge medications, the internal mammary, and the pre-op beta blockers. Now, when I'm ready to switch to my next procedure, I can then just work backwards from wherever I started. Just make sure you know what time frame you're working on, and then you just go and select the next set of procedures. One warning that I'll give you is when you're looking at the mitral valves. Remember that mitral valve repair and replacement are combined. So when we're looking at isolated mitral valve, MVRR, we're looking at isolated mitral valve replacement and isolated mitral valve repair together. So you have to make sure you check both of those boxes and combine them. And then the same thing when you're looking at the valve plus cabbages for mitral valve. Make sure you select both the mitral valve replacement and mitral valve repair plus cabbage boxes so it's all combined together. And that's how I would do that to ensure that I'm not missing out on my thresholds for inclusion to analysis. Any specific questions on there? Let's see.
There are lots of questions.
Okay, yeah, I forgot to shut down the chat box. I'm going to shut down the chat box real quick so we can put everything into the Q&A. And I see everybody. How about an IQVIA report for just the missing? So they do have a missing report. And that is available here, this missing variable report. One thing we're working on building with IQVIA that should be coming soon is an executive summary that will have your trending star ratings over the last few reports, last few star rating periods, some high level metrics like blood usage, length of stay, ventilation times, and then I think those three, and then it'll also have a spot on there to show you if you're at risk for exclusion from analysis, which will take place of the report that I would be sending out to sites with Harvest 1 and Harvest 3. So feel free to email me, ckrohn@sts.org. I just have to, I'm going to update that spreadsheet a little bit. And make sure you put your questions. If you do have questions, please make sure you put them into the Q&A so we don't miss them. That helps us keep track of them because I can download it into a spreadsheet with the emails that people ask, who ask, it has their emails on there. Okay. I do
Carol,
not know what, yeah.
Karen actually had a really good suggestion, but it's in the chat box in
Oh,
regards
no.
to your spreadsheet, as perhaps we could put it in the resource documents section for people so that you're not
Oh, in
having
the
to send it out.
IQVIA here?
Yeah, in the
Mhm,
library.
Yeah, that's a great idea. We can probably link to it. Maybe we'll put it under, yeah, I'll figure it out. We'll find someplace good to store it and make sure everybody knows. I think this would probably be a good spot, Karen. Thanks for the idea. Okay, thanks, Karen. Let's go to the questions. Any timeline on when the aorta risk scores will be released? No, I don't have any updates on that, just that they're still working on it. Looking at the MVRR cabbage needing a total of 25 cases in 36 months for a star rating. Do you mean mitral valve repair cabbage and mitral valve replace cabbage? No, you combine those. So it's mitral valve repair and replacement, and then mitral valve repair and replacement plus cabbage. And the counts, so mitral valve repair or replacement, you need to have 36 of those procedures. So a combination of repair and replacements, 36. Mitral valve repair or replacements plus a cabbage. So mitral valve repair plus a cabbage, mitral valve replacement plus a cabbage. Any combination of those, you need 25 over the 36-month period. Did I say it right? Since IQVIA is the database, is there a way that IQVIA creates a summary sheet like we have with DCRI that tells us percent missing instead of us? Yes, that's here, right? We have the percent missing. I don't know that IQVIA, let me see if I can find where the heck it went. I don't know that DCRI provided, I think they always said that if any of these are over 2%, you could be at risk for exclusion from analysis, but they never really told you if you were ever really truly excluded from analysis. And I don't know that we can safely provide that as an end all be all. This, you are not going to be included or you are going to be included, because once that data goes from the warehouse into analysis, sometimes things change. Not that often, and they're not expected to change, but sometimes there are slight changes in the cases that go into analysis versus what comes out of analysis. And we don't ever want to tell you something. We try really hard not to tell you something that's wrong without doing our due diligence or thinking that, thinking that we're not leading you astray. So the missing variable report is here, and this is where you can provide your own date ranges. So we're going to look at that first 12-month. That's going to be an analysis. This is for all of the cases, though. It doesn't provide you a missing variable report. I don't think it does. Let's double check. Broken down by procedure. It's just date range. It's still helpful, though, because you can see where you do have missingness. You can see quickly if you need to go in. And remember, we can sort these variables to be, I think I did it. Yeah. Sort these variables to be alphabetical. You can just fly through them and see if there's anything that's weird to you that's missing. It's not broken down by procedure type or PROC ID. It is broken down by data version. You can look specifically at risk model variables or the national quality form measures. And I don't think the site's shouldn't have any. Oh, this antibiotic discontinuation, that's not really an NQF measure, but we use it for other reasons. And then other cardiac, I'm not sure what that is. I'd have to drill down and look and see if I could Oh, missing 0%. One case out of 448. I'd probably just want to go check and see what that is. But this missing variable reports is good for a crude overview of your missing variables, but it's not good. Not good if you really want to get specific in PRAC ID, per PRAC ID, like cabbage, isolated cabbage. This PRAC ID filter here is looking at variables that make up the PRAC ID, right? So we have things like, to review this, I don't know what this is, but it has things, you know, the variables that are used on the PRAC ID chart to determine if something is a cabbage or a valve or things like that. Yeah, you know, I'll post it. Maybe don't email me, because then I'm going to have 800, or I have a lot of emails and I won't be able to get back to everybody. So maybe when we next meet, I'll be able to clean this up a little bit and post it to the website in the resource link, like Karen had suggested. Do you think it would ever? Yeah, so I think that that's something that Judy's asking. Do you think it would ever be possible for IQVIA to provide us the volumes for the risk models and percent missing of the required fields for star ratings instead of sites digging it out? Well, I think a couple of things here. I think we will be providing, we're working with IQVIA on providing that summary, the executive summary that will be just really a notice to sites that, hey, your data is not looking so clean, or hey, your data is looking great. But the data management job at facilities is to clean up your data and to know how to use your data at your sites and to use the tools that are available. We try to make them as useful as possible. And of course, there's always room for improvement. But we can't, you know, every time we provide something, there's always something else that could be provided or something else that can make it easier. So we try to provide what we can. We try to educate on it. And then if there's a deficiency or something's lacking, then we try to work on that. But I think it's still part of a data abstractor's job to clean up the data. So we have to, you know, we got to work together to do it and to make it as easy as possible for you to do your job, so it's not burdensome or too burdensome, but it's a job and we have to do it. So yeah, we're working on something similar. The only problem with the executive summary that we're working on that I can see letting sites know, it's similar for those who are familiar with the CAF PCI or the TVT registry, the NCDR reporting yellow, green, yellow, or red status for sites. It will be something similar to that. One of the issues I see with it is that it can't be drilled down. You can't drill down into it to see exactly what those cases are. It's just a lead to get you to look at your data closer.
No, you can drill down. You can figure out what's
No,
causing the yellow or the
you know,
red
I'm
issue.
talking about on what we're providing for.
Oh, what you're providing. I was
for
going to say,
IQVIA,
okay.
yeah. And at least to start, there will not be drill down functionality on it, but we have a lot of other tools that you can use. I think we just have to get familiar with how to use them. So we'll get there. So the dates for AQO this year are September 26th through the 29th, and it will be virtual. Adult cardiac will be held on the 28th of September. Last time you showed us how to do this, a lot of people were asking if all of the data requirement fields can be in one section without switching back and forth like you are doing now. Yeah, I'll have to look at it and see if we can build out another section that just has the required fields that pulls from each of those other sections. So say for isolated cabbage, you would have, you know, the mortality fields that are required and then the NQF fields that are required. So you could easily see those. It's something that we need to work with IQVIA on. So it's a really great suggestion and I'll take it back. Agree with Sue, would love to have an IQVIA report under ACSD reports where we would select start stop dates. Then report would display everything you have on your spreadsheet. Yeah, I hear you, darling. Discharge anti-lipids, I don't think it is just statins, is it, Melinda? I think it's statins and
well, For the
non-statins.
metric, if you're asking about the metric, the NQF metric, it's just statins.
I-
If that's what you're
Oh.
referring to.
Yeah, then maybe I said it wrong.
I mean, when you look at our data collection form, you can say whether it's a statin or a non-statin, but the metric is specifically for statins. And it's not clearly documented here on this particular site, but if you go into where Carole's going right now, if you go into the data collection resources, under version 4.2, you will see that there we go, the NQF endorsed measures, and it's very clearly laid out that it's only includes a statin.
Thank you for bringing that up. And I think I included something else that shouldn't have been included in my review of it. What did I include? Non-statins.
I'm not sure that you did, but I get this question all the time, so it's a really good question. And this is an
Thank you.
excellent document, and I'm glad we were able to show people where it is.
Yeah, well, we don't have any plan. Thank you, Melinda. We don't have any plans right now for IQVIA to report it, but it's something we can work on with them. I think though that the denominator listed in the IQVIA site will not exclude cases where there are variables missing that cause a case to be excluded from analysis. Yeah, be careful about checking the missing variable report. I agree with that. I think you have to be careful about this. And, remember, there will be cases excluded. I think the main goal is that you don't want to have any missingness for your mortality fields. We should always know where our cardiac surgery patients are 30 days after surgery, because it's cardiac surgery and it's a major deal, right? We're not just seeing the patient and sending them home and checking on them on 30 days. We're performing heart surgery on them. And so we should know where those patients are at 30 days after surgery. If for some reason you are unable to find updates on those patients, which hopefully is very rare, and looking at the data, it seems that it is very rare that we're unable to find those patients. You want to be very careful, because like Robin is saying in the question here, there were exclusions that we remember. We excluded COVID patients. And we did that from January 1st, 2020 through December 31st, 2021. If your denominator lessens because of those COVID patients, you can actually cause yourself to have a higher missing rate because you're lowering your denominator. So you just want to be careful when you're looking at this to get as close to zero as possible for your missingness. Don't settle for a 1.5 or a 1.8% missingness and say you're good to go. There's always risk, right? There's always risk. If we're not at zero, we don't have everything, all of our I's dotted, T's crossed. We want to make sure that, we have all of our patients accounted for if possible. What is the most recent version for ACSD and Apollo we should update to? I don't know what that is. You might want to reach out to your vendor. Sorry about that.
Well, I think excuse me, the version that we currently are in is 4.2.
Oh,
right?
The version for adult cardiac?
I'm assuming that's what she's asking, but
oh, I understood that question about the version for Apollo.
yeah, I think the question was what version they should be entering in Apollo.
Oh, version 4.2 is our current version. Thank you, Melinda.
Okay.
Yeah, lots of requests for before IQVIA, we used to get a report for missingness if we would fall out from getting star ratings in the data quality report. And we'll provide something similar to that in that executive summary I was talking about. But remember, nothing is, nothing's fail safe. There's always risk with any report, unless you're for certain that you're at 0% for everything. there's always risk of not being included in the star rating if you're even close to that 2%. So, and this report from DCRI before we did have IQVIA, it said that right in the report that there was no guarantee, so something similar to that. There was no guarantee if you're close to 2%, you're at risk for not being included in analysis. So you have to always keep that in mind.
Yeah, and before the report that DCRI sent out, we would have the data quality report. That didn't have any of the missing stuff in it. Then you had a separate missing, but that separate missing looks essentially like IQVIA's does now, basically, in my
Yeah,
perception.
we tried to build it off of that. So I'm glad you said that, Melinda. Why would there be missing data? I agree, Nancy. I don't know why there's missing data, but sometimes there's missing data. If you all submit a request to IQVIA to build a report that replicates the spreadsheet for missingness, that it would go through faster. It all goes through STS, and me and Jane and Banu would be overwhelmed with all of your emails. So I'll take this request back. I mean, we absolutely love feedback. I'll take this request back, but if anybody wants to submit an email, you can. Just be mindful that it's only STS who's managing the help list. So why can't you just click all for mortality? I don't understand the question. Are low volume hospitals able to get 3 stars? I think it's a good question, Tabitha. Lower volume hospitals have a harder time getting 3 stars because the confidence intervals are so wide that the STS score usually falls inside that confidence interval. So it's definitely harder for smaller hospitals to get 3 stars for lower volumes. What constitutes confirming a patient is alive? They have read messages on their patient portal or they've had medications. Do you want to take that one, Melinda?
Yeah, but it's kind of a loaded question because what, just because somebody read a message, I don't know who actually read that message unless the patient responds to the message and you see the patient's name. And then for medications, it's sort of like the same thing. I mean, Shelley, we probably need to discuss this a little more in the FAQ mailbox, but with maybe some examples of what you're actually looking at, probably be really helpful.
Yeah, thank you. I'm going to take 2 more questions. It's at 3 o'clock now. There was a question that came in from Christine. I've been having conversations with her looking at N in the non-analyzed report. And I just, she was looking at pulling out some information over longer periods of time. She wanted to be able to look at 14 months worth of data, a specific time frame. You cannot do that in the analyzed risk adjusted reports because it's broken down by the entire time frame, right? Entire 36 months. You have the 36 months reported out separately by calendar year, but you can't really filter on those. So I was just going to talk about the ends real fast here and give an example. If we're looking at, let's say, January 2022 through current, I just picked isolated cabbages to look at this. And what she was looking at specifically was post-operative events. I think it's post-operative events where we capture the sternal site, surgical site infections and the deep sternal wound infections. When we pull this up, the first page it opens to is demographics. This number here, this 448, this number of cases, that's your total cases for isolated cabbages for the time frame that was selected for the time frame of January 1st through May 3rd. I'm just going to write that number down just in case. I don't remember if it populates on every screen, but I think it does, but just in case it doesn't. Okay, so then I'm going to go look at my post-operative events tab. And I think what's important to remember, it does populate at the top of each of these pages. I think what's important to remember is that the non-analyzed, the participant dashboard is non-analyzed data. There's no analytics or analysis that goes into it. It's pretty much built off of and uses numerators and denominators as you would find in the data collection form. And I think that's where knowing the database is going to come in pretty handy in looking at the data. So you're going to say these percentages don't make sense and all of this. My number of cases 448, and I think I suggested this before, but it was probably a while ago. I would just go through this report. You could even just go through it one time looking at the data collection form, because I think this is going to be really helpful. So let me go down here to the surgical site infection, and sorry for the scrolling. Close your eyes if it's giving you a headache or anything like that. The surgical site infection stuff is way down here in the operative event, post-operative event section. So we're going to make this guy a little bit smaller so we can put it screen to screen. If I can find it. I'm going to scoot this over. Oopsie. Scoot you over and you go here. All right. So our first thing is number of cases. Okay, fine. And then surgical site infection within 30 days of operation. The only requirement to get to this field is that the patients did not expire in the OR. So right off the bat, this number of cases, it could potentially be lower than 447 when you're looking at the denominator for surgical site infections, because it's automatically going to exclude patients who died in the OR. Hopefully not many, but if you notice a discrepancy, that's where it is probably coming from. Then when we get down to surgical superficial sternal infections, sternal wound infections, look at here. So superficial sternal wound infections, the only way you can fall into this denominator is if the question above it, which is its parent field, is yes infectious or yes both. So these two options, yes infectious, yes both, make up the denominator for this. They're using the parent fields, the parent harvest codes to populate the denominator for this field. So yes infectious, yes both is the denominator, and then the numerator are any of these choices, right? So yes infectious, yes both, so it would be this 3 and 0. We're looking at 3, 0. And then that's my denominator for the superficial sternal wound. Deep sternal wound has the same denominators. It's a total of yes infectious or yes both. Same thing with thoracotomy, conduit, harvest, cannulation site. Non-infective surgical wound, my denominator comes from this parent field, and it's only going to be non-infectious or both. So I have a different denominator for this field. So what the data is telling you when you're reading it, superficial sternal wounds, is out of my superficial sternal wounds, I can only get to this field if it was yes infectious or yes both, which includes infectious and both. Out of those, so many of my yeses occurred within 30 days, and so many of my yeses occurred greater than 30 days. So that's going to be your numerator for those yes fields. You can also get deep sternal wound is your denominator is a total of infectious and both. So if I had a denominator of 10, if I had coded either infectious or both 10 times, 10 patients, and I coded one time within greater than 30 days, what I would be saying is that one patient had a deep sternal wound out of 10 within 30 days. It doesn't give you your total denominator, right? It doesn't give you the total number of patients. So there's two ways to report this. You can look at your total number of cases, that one patient, 1 out of 48, or you can look at your number of infectious, how many of those infections were deep sternal wounds. Two ways to report it means different things. Both are useful for in different ways. But you just have to know how to read the data, read this report and how it's written. Right now it's written in using the parents as the denominator, so the positive parents as the denominator. Look at the DCF next to it when you're going through it a couple times, and you'll get used to that. And it's the same thing when we look at other in-hospital post-operative events occurred. And let's just say we're looking at re-op for bleed. The denominator for this field, when we're looking at re-op for bleed, I wish I could make this bigger, hold on. When we're looking at re-op for bleed here, acute late missing, the denominator for this is the parent field equal to yes. I hate these double scrolly things. Is the denominator equal to yes when we're talking about the parent, which is in hospital post-operative events? So my yes, it's going to be 9 over 124. That I could only get to this bleeding tamponade field if I answered yes. So 9 over 124 is 7.3%. That's how that's being calculated. If you wanted it out of your total patients, you would look at your 9. You would look at your 9 over the 448, and that's out of your total patients. So 9 patients out of 9 isolated cabbages out of 440 isolated cabbages had re-op for bleed. Out of your post-operative events, 7.3% of your post-operative events were re-op for bleed. So 2 ways to read the data. Currently, we're only reporting it out using the parent as the denominator, and we are talking about using the overall denominator as well to report it out in the future. So I wanted to talk about that one, and then readmission rates, where readmission rates are found in the, so this is your operational reports. In this risk adjusted dashboard, this is your risk adjusted report. This is where your quarterly report lives. In this report, you have a section for benchmarked reports. It's going to include your readmission rates. So it's going to scroll down. I'll scroll down here as soon as this opens. And while this is opening, I'm going to take Julie's question about valves updated in REDCap. We do not update valves in REDCap. It's a form to fill out for valves that are not currently being included or listed in the valve list for version 4.20. And we'll use that list to update in the future versions. So once this loads and populates, I'm curious to find my readmission rates. Now remember, readmission rates, those are not risk adjusted. So they're going to be located in the benchmarked reports. We have a lot of data in the benchmarked reports, but they will not be located in the risk adjusted. You have to go to the benchmarked reports. And when you scroll down here, you'll see readmission and reason. You also have length of stay information. And this is going to pull up your readmission rates with the STS, with the light group and the STS, and it'll give you the reasons here. So I hope that helps.
There's also a question about intubation times. That would also be found in here, correct? This
Yeah, the
area?
early extubation time. So those are going to be found. I'm just going to click that back to benchmark button. When you scroll down here, under the, I think it's under post-operative events is where we'll find ventilation times.
I think so.
Spot on the report for extubated early. In this report, you have your vent times, your initial vent hours, less than 6 hours. This is the early extubation. So you're going to want to look here in this report for those values. Extubated in OR, reintubation, and additional vent hours are all within the benchmarked reports. They're all going to be in the benchmark reports under the post-operative information. Okay. Are we good, Melinda? And we got a lot of questions. I don't think we're going to be able to get through them all.
Yeah, I can go a little bit longer. It's up to you.
Yeah, maybe let's go 10 more minutes if you can. Can you repeat your tip to combine the MV repair and replacement? Sure. So when we're looking at the participant dashboard, your non-analyzed dashboard, When you're looking at that for this, I'm just going to quick select a time period. The procedures, this is where you'll combine them for the mitral valve repair and replacements. So you have isolated mitral valve repair, replacement, isolated mitral valve repair. You look at these together for purposes of volume requirements and meeting the threshold for the mortality fields. The same thing when you're looking at mitral valve repair or replacement with CABG. You combine these two together. The mitral valve replace plus CABG, mitral valve repair plus CABG. Which report do you use for your spreadsheet to obtain the percentages? I use that participant dashboard. We use the participant dashboard. I do not have data for Proc ID. I see in red, no data for a specified time. Michelle, feel free to send me a screenshot. I'm not sure what that is, what that's referring to. I'm sorry. Our site always wants to know how many patients died in the hospital versus operative mortality within 30 days post-op date. So for that, when you're looking, we actually report that out in the risk-adjusted reports, and we report it out as in-hospital mortality and operative mortality. I hope this is what you're talking about. It's under the risk-adjusted section of this report. I have gotten questions, a couple questions since the last report came out about what's the difference. Operative mortality includes patients who died in the hospital and any of those patients who were discharged but died within 30 days of procedure. The in-hospital mortality is a subset of those patients and includes any patient that died within the hospital during initial during their admission. So under the risk-adjusted report, risk-adjusted and regional outcomes, you'll have your in-hospital and your operative mortality. So this is where you'll find those differences. So in-hospital observed rate or risk-adjusted rate for STS is 1.82. Operative mortality risk-adjusted rate for STS is 2.38. We used to see how many other procedures have been done over time. Will we get that back in the future? So you can see how many other procedures are done over time when you go to the participant dashboard under other and you under procedures and you select none. This is going to pull up all the other procedures, the non-Proc ID procedures. I don't like the wording of it, but that's what they worded it. What impact does a post-op AFib have? Doesn't have any on the composite scores. When our site's going to be notified, they are going to be audited this year, likely late May. For our star ratings publicly reported data, what is used for reporting? What's 6690? Is that a sequence number?
Yeah, that's an infection.
What's used for reporting 6690 or 6970?
So they're asking the difference between, I guess, just an infection or deep sternal. Is that, I think that's what they're asking.
Yeah, we look at deep sternal wound infections. Let me pull up the data collection form.
That's what I'm sure that's what it is.
Second. Oopsie. 6. Oh yeah, so we look at the deep sternal infections right here. The double plus signs there is what's used in the composite measure. It would still be useful to show us why a case was excluded for a certain category. Well, we know that the patients less than 18 are excluded. We have to dig through data. Yeah, it's tricky. To think about that, Nikolai, if you could send me an email, maybe we can talk to IQVIA about that, because I think we're trying to do things for the other registries as well. No promises for things to be done this year, but it's all good to have feedback and ideas of ways that we can improve and discuss it with IQVIA. I hate the double scroll on IQVIA, and they can't fix it because they only have so much real estate to build, which within these platforms, within these screens. And I guess maybe I just am not used to it yet. IQVIA should use a tab to show parent-child results. Yeah, there's so many things we could do better in the reporting. It's a good idea. I just don't know We've done it this way with DCRI. We brought this way over from DCRI using the parent as the denominator. And then we built it this way with IQVIA because that's how we were doing it in DCRI. We want to show other results as well, right? We want to show the total denomination, denomination. We want to show the total denominator versus the parent denominator, and trying to build that out to see how we could show two results together without making more confusion. So I think it's a good suggestion. We just had to figure out the best way to do it. And the risk adjusted report results, 3-year trends, can IQVIA please show the denominator for each year as a header on each page versus only the first page of that section? The request would be for this for each procedure category that is in reports, also ISO, CAB, ISO, ABR, etc. On the risk adjusted reports, 3-year trends. Hold on. On the risk adjusted report results, 3-year trends. Yeah, I think these are all good suggestions. We just have to figure out, and then the denominator is the header on each page for each trended year by category on the benchmark non-adjusted risk report. Yeah, I think that's a good suggestion. We just have to figure out how to do it, and I appreciate that. Karen, if you want to send that into me, I'll pass it along to add to our elaboration spreadsheet to discuss it. And count, yep. Where was the post-op event benchmark report you just showed? So that was under the benchmark tab in the risk adjusted report. Let's get back there real quick. So right when you log in, I'm under operational reports, risk adjusted dashboard. This includes risk adjusted and benchmarked reports. In the middle here, you'll see benchmarked data. As this is loading, Heather's asking if there's any rounding. 6.01 hours is still considered over 6 hours. Yes, that's correct. So anything over 6 hours, it's over 6 hours. We don't cut off after the decimal point. We look at whatever's entered in. If it's over 6 hours, it's over 6 hours. So the post-op benchmark report is underneath the report I showed you. Benchmarked reports, isolated cabbage is where I went because that's what we're going to be working on. Under post-operative information, and once that loads, I'll show you where it's at, but this is where it lives. So under benchmark report, post-operative information, scroll down here, and you have all your vent hours, initial vent, less than 6 hours, extubated in OR, reintubation, and additional vent hours. You also have all your ICU hours here and your total blood products. One thing that is a little confusing to sites is when we're talking about blood products, we report it out in 2 spots. We report it out here, and we also report it out in the operative section, right? So there's a benchmarked operative section. You're going to find your operative blood usage under operative section, and you're going to find your blood products use. This is operative. Whoops, this is operative. And then blood products used in post-operative is going to include your post-op blood products, and it's also include your intra-op post-op totals for blood products. So you have your blood products here, which is your post-operative blood products, and then you have your total blood products use, which includes a combination of your intra-op and post-op blood products. But yes, this is where your vent hours live as well.
So Carol, there's one other question in the chat box, which would probably be helpful. The question is from Annie. So the patient was discharged on Plavix, not on aspirin. How does this count? And I think that goes back to the NQF measure. Where, you can, if you read that measure, you can either be discharged on Plavix or aspirin or another antiplatelet. So you don't have to be discharged on all 3 of them, just one of them.
If I can find it, I'll find it. Hold on. I think it might be at the top though, and I missed it.
can't remember. I always control F and find everything. It's like,
I know, I guess I like to torture my eyes by scrolling. There it is.
There it
Look at
is.
that. It was on page 3. Scrolled right past it.
So, yeah, if you look here, it's clearly or. Discharge aspirin, yes, or ADP, yes, or other antiplatelet, yes. So if they're
Thank you,
just go home on
Melinda.
Plavix, there's no fallout. You're doing great.
Okay. Thanks, Melinda. I think we're good.
We're good.
I think we're as good as we're going to be.
Oh, yes.
The initial vent hours less than 6 hours excludes patients discharged, extubated in the OR. That's a good question.
I thought they were included.
I think they're included.
I think they are too.
Because we went back and forth about this with the surgeons. Let me see if I can find anything.
But I don't know for sure. I mean,
Yeah, I think it's going to be in this report somewhere. I have to go through the whole thing. And I'm sorry for making you.
I've read that somewhere. It's either in the software specs or that report or.
Yeah, we'll have to go through it. I think it does include them because those patients technically are extubated within less than 6 hours, right?
Mhm.
So I have to go through it. If you go through this report, you'll probably find it.
Oh, Tabitha says she looked and they exclude them.
Yeah, where did you find it, Tabitha? I got to go through it. I don't want to answer and not be right.
She was drilling down the data in IQVIA. Okay.
Yeah, let me go through it and we'll have to go through it. I don't want to answer incorrectly or on the fly and give the wrong answer because I know we had many discussions about it with the surgeons and went back and forth, and I'm not sure where we landed because there was argument for doing it both ways. So, all right. Thank you, Melinda. Thanks, Leanne. Thanks, Emily, Sydney, and everybody for joining. Have a great rest of the day. Thanks for joining, and we'll talk again soon. I think in a couple of weeks, right? Let's see when our next call is. May 17th. Oh, look at that. We got a couple of weeks off. May 17th. Woo, woo.
Woohoo.
All right, everybody. Have a good day. Take care and talk soon. Thank you.